Hey, Founders Fire family. Welcome to the Founders Fire podcast. I'm Eric Beck. Excited to get into some details today about the JFK 50 and this idea of coming in dead last. So many things to get into. Here's a little preview of our big ideas for today. Obviously, we're going to talk about the JFK 50. We're going to talk about what good comes from losing, the stats, the knee injury. Obviously, some thank yous are going to happen today. The last time practice that I learned from Sam Harris, the problem of evil, aim small, miss small, and what it takes to begin again. So let's start off with a quote from Thomas Jefferson. I love quotes, and I love this one. If you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do something you've never done. Thomas Jefferson. So I got this crazy idea in my head about 4 years ago that I wanted to do an ultra marathon. And some colleagues and I decided to go and do this one in Maryland. It's called the JFK 50. And it has a really cool backstory to it. So it's an ultra marathon. It's America's oldest ultra marathon. And many elite runners, which I am not, say that it is the most difficult 50 miler in the country. I don't know that for a fact because it's the only one that I've done. But the history around it is really cool, as well as the accolades that it has. So I'll give you a little bit of this. And again, if you want to just Google it, you'll find out all of the details. But here's the short version. So in the 1960s, John F. Kennedy is president, and he is concerned about the physical fitness of Americans. And I am so pleased that this is back in the public conversation. Just the idea of how health is wealth. It is national security. It is productivity. In other words, if we are healthy and vibrant, everything else is possible. So when we think about our health, we may think about pain meds or this injury or that thing, but really we need to think about it as a lifestyle and as stewardship. We have the incredible ability to live our lives at full energy, full potential, and full capacity. But many of us have given into the idea that it's just not possible. It's, genetically, I'm just not going to be able to do that. I'm going to always be overweight. I'm going to always be stressed out. I'm going to always have a, quote, bad back. Isn't that funny that when part of our body is injured or healing, we actually speak ill of it? Yeah, that's my bad knee. That's my back is bad. My back went out. We got to be really careful about that. And I'm glad that in some ways this is coming around to our consciousness in 2024 to think about health in a new way. There's a lot of chemicals in our food that do not serve us. They might make the food taste good, or they might make the shelf life longer. But those are ultimately self-destructive. And we know that from the standpoint of being founders, of being entrepreneurs, we're looking to create value. What if, though, the way we create value in the short run removes value in the long run at an exponential rate? Well, then obviously that would run afoul of our ethos, and that's not really true value. So there's not an opportunity there. Where the opportunity is to look at what gives the most benefit for the longest duration so that people can be free to do what they're called to do. I'll tell you what, it starts with health. If your mind isn't clear and your body isn't vibrant, what can you really do? Okay? If you think about that compared to broken, tired, miserable, depressed, in the hospital, on medications, can you still have a productive life in all those situations? Of course you can. Of course you can, and of course people do. But just pick anybody who's done something amazing under all those circumstances and ask them, would you have preferred to be healthy? Would you have preferred to have more energy? Would you have preferred to have vibrancy and clarity of thought? I think the answer across the board is a resounding yes. But we tend to have gone down this path of believing, well, that's just the way it is. Well, back in the 1960s, our president at the time, Kennedy, says, hey, I'm concerned. We got this thing called the TV. We got this thing called the radio. We got cars. We got offices. People are kind of starting to sit a lot. What would happen to our country if our health seriously declined? And so he said, we've got to get our team healthy. We've got to get up to par. And so he went to one of his generals and said, hey, I want to set some physical fitness standards for the American citizenry. What would you recommend? And he thought about it, and he said, well, back when Teddy Roosevelt, one of my favorite presidents, was president, he actually set the standard for Army officers that they needed to be able to cover 50 miles in a single day with a pack. And that if you could not meet that physical standard, you could not be an officer in the United States Army. And Kennedy thought, well, that sounds great. You know, how can we do this? What could we do? And so the wheels were put into motion to do a 50-mile ultra marathon. I'm not sure if it was called ultra marathon at the time, but ultra marathon, where all of the services and government agencies competed. So the Army was going to race, the Navy was going to race the this and the that and the other thing. And so it started as a military race, really as an exhibition, as a publicity opportunity to get everyone to pay attention to this. Now, if you look at the relative health and incidences, let's say, of cancer and diabetes, allergies, autism, you go down the list of things that were occurring in the 1960s versus today, it's beyond depressing. You know, we're at 10x, 20x, 30x in some cases worse on all these chronic diseases that are really the diseases of wealth. You know, we have the ability to buy the sugary foods and the this and the that and the highly processed and all of that sort of stuff. And so the complacency of life has become this worldview that I really want to stand against. And it really cost me a lot. And having come through it, I know that if that's a goal for you, you can come through it. But when you start seeing this responsibility that you have for the Ferrari that you're given, at birth, we're all given a Ferrari. Maybe not everybody has got the same genetics as Michael Jordan, but could we just drop that as the excuse? Yeah, I'll never be, number one in the world. Okay, you're not going to be first place out of 8 billion. Okay, that's not the reason to view your body and all that makes up your physical being as the miracle it is. It's miracles upon miracles upon miracles. If you study and look into the biology that makes the human being tick, it is absolutely astounding what you've been given. It's like being born with $1 trillion in the bank, right? But what do most of us, what are we raised to think? Well, first of all, we go to school and we sit down all day. Maybe we have recess, but I've heard actually now that the average prisoner in an American jail spends more active time outside than the average kid in school, right? So we sit down, we're taught, well, some of you are athletes, 1 or 2 or 3%, but all the rest of you guys just don't worry about that. We're taught that, hey, it's genetics anyway, and you can't help it. It's not your fault. There's nothing you can do, and it's just the way it is. And then we sit on our rear ends on Saturday or Sunday, and we drink beer, and we eat chips, and watch other people do awesome things. And so we've gotten into this mode of we'll pay other people to do the things that really excite us and that we admire because we've told ourselves the story, well, I could never be like them, so why try? So instead of spending 4 hours watching football, you could have been out on a 4-hour hike. You could have been doing something that builds self-respect instead of cheering on your favorite team. And that whole tribal mentality of borrowed identity, I'm a Broncos fan, or I'm a Lions fan, or I'm a Charger, or I'm a New York Yankees, or whatever. Okay, it's all fine. Again, don't get too upset with me. It's fine, but take a step back and just ask yourself, if you had spent all of the hours that you have spent watching sports, or you can fill in the blank for that, scrolling through social media, on investing in the $1 trillion Ferrari you were born with, Would your workday be more efficient? Would your mind be clearer? Would your energy level be higher? Would your pain level be lower? Would you deal with setbacks in a different way? If you think about it, it really makes you take a deep breath and say, wow. I don't know if that's exactly what JFK was thinking, but I think it was something like that. And that was 1960, whenever it was then. So they put together this race, and they want to encourage physical fitness because physical health, mental health, and the two go hand in hand, are the keys to freedom. If you are sick and you are weak and you are mentally clouded, you are not going to be free very long. And I don't mean from a totalitarian government that might swoop in and take over. I mean just in daily life. You're not free to go where you please. You're not free to get done what you want to get done. You're not free. Okay? And that really is the core idea behind Founders Fire. Our software that we use with our clients is called Spartacus for the same reason. We want to set people free to play a game worth playing. And most of our work and most of the way we do business, unfortunately, when it's unconscious and it's just assumed, it goes in the direction of capitalism, as in the worship of capital, as in the highest value is to be able to sell something and get people to spend money, regardless of the long-term value of that expenditure. And that's where the rub comes in. Planned obsolescence. I'm not going to build a phone that'll last for, a decade. Why? Because no one will buy another phone. I'm not going to build a car that would last, or jeans that would last, or a computer or a desk or whatever. No. We've got to keep people buying. This is the Keynesian view of economics. We have got to keep spending money no matter what. Well, Hayek on the other side, and if you haven't seen the funny rap video of these two guys battling in their ideas, it's worth a look up on YouTube. I don't know who produced that, but it's pretty hilarious and pretty accurate too. I think there is a part 1 and a part 2. It's John Maynard Keynes versus Hayek, and it might be called Rap Battle or Music Battle or something like that. But they do a good job to explain the differences here. Now, why am I pointing this out? I'm pointing it out because capitalism as a system is incredibly productive and good, but it needs a moral framework around it. And if it does not have a moral framework and it enters an amoral capitalism, then you can see how quickly it falls apart. And so we have to be conscious that the red ocean we are all in as business owners and entrepreneurs is not neutral. It is not valueless. There is no neutral thought. Every thought has a value set behind it, and we have to be conscious of that value set. Okay, well, if we go back to the JFK 50, if we go back to JFK himself, they plan this race. They're going to get into this great, physical contest to get everyone's attention. And then, of course, Kennedy is assassinated. So they have not had the race yet, and they're not sure if they're going to cancel it. They decide to hold it, though, at the last minute as a memorial. And so they run it. And so this year, 2024, was the 62nd running of the JFK 50. And each year for the first maybe 5 or so, it was pretty much military only or very much geared towards folks in the military. It became a public race sometime in the years after, and then I think maybe by the 70s or so has been a public race since then. So you can enter it. It's open to everyone. But holy moly, I got a hold of this bad boy about 4 years ago and thought, I'll do that. The first time I tried it, I didn't finish. The second time I tried it, I didn't finish. The third time I tried it, I didn't finish. Okay, this year was the 4th year and the first time that I ever finished it. But I've got some interesting news to tell you. I lost. It is a race. and so technically, we're all running against each other to see who's fastest. But that was not my goal. Let me give you some statistics. First of all, it is a little bit over 50 miles. And there's some controversy about this I might mention in a second. Second of all, you have 13 hours to complete it. So it starts at 6:30 a.m. and you have until 7:30 p.m. to get it done. That's a really, really long day. So you might be wondering, okay, Eric, well, you finished it. What was your finish time? It was exactly 12 hours, 57 minutes, and 18.2 seconds. That means that a little less than 3 minutes remained before the cutoff. And there are cutoffs prior to that. And we'll talk about a few of those in a minute. I came in absolute dead last. I was the last human being to cross the finish line. I was the biggest loser. I was the number one loser. What does that mean? That means 1,120 people tried this, and about 117 didn't finish. Of the men who finished, there were 896. I was absolutely last. I was 896th in the category male. In my age group, there were 116 people from ages 50 to 59. I was dead last. I was last in every possible way. In fact, there were 2 Becks that ran the race, me and my son Aiden. And so again, shout out Aiden to you. Thank you so much for taking me through this journey. You were amazing. But I was even last from him. I was the last Beck by a couple of milliseconds, but still, nevertheless, last. It was a day, on a certain way of looking at it, of absolute and total failure. The only thing worse than my failing would have been to not finish, which I already did that 3 times. The first year I only got to mile 42. The second year, I got to mile 38. I thought my watch was tracking the mileage different than it was. So I got pulled off the course at the aid station at 38 miles. If you don't make the next station within a certain time, I think there are about 17 points where you'll get pulled off the race course. So you have to keep a certain pace. The big challenge, of course, was the whole thing is a big challenge. It's not flat. There's a lot of mountains and hills, rocks. Someone fell and slipped and broke their jaw. People had ankle injuries. Fortunately, it's an incredibly safe race because I think people don't do this unless you're really training to do this. And a lot of the folks that run it are either pro racers or they've been pro racers, but nobody just says, hey, what are you doing this weekend? I don't know. Why don't we go run the JFK 50? So you get a lot of very serious people about running. But if you step back for a second and you go, okay, Eric, at age 53, you try to do this 50-mile race the 4th time. What the heck are you doing? You're just failing after failing after failing. And even when you did finally finish it with 2 minutes and, 40 seconds or so before the final cutoff, in the dark, and it's freezing, which it was, why would you do this? It seems like such a waste of time, such an epic waste, and you lost. You came in dead last. By the way, let's give some shout out for just a second to David Sinclair from South Burlington, Vermont, who came in absolutely first. So David and I'm going to actually try to get David on the podcast. In fact, I think that'll make for a great conversation, but he came in first place. His time was 5 hours and 8 minutes, 26.9 seconds. So it was more than twice as fast as me. And it broke a course record. I think it was the fastest time recorded. And of course, shout out to the fastest woman. I'm sorry, I didn't research the name, but I did hear that it was this year was the first year that a woman broke the 6-hour mark. So I think she was at 5:58 or 5:50, something like that. So incredible athletes, incredible. Okay, Eric, you got in a race with David Sinclair, who basically ran 50 6-minute miles. 50 6-minute pace miles. That's who you're racing. And he crushed you. Okay, so that is a way to look at it, right? But another way to look at it is all the things you overcome. All the things you overcome. I don't know how hard it was for him to do his race. I'm sure it was brutal. But I know how hard it was for me to do this race. And I don't think I lost in terms of effort. I don't think that was the case. I don't think I lost when about 80 days ago, I had a significant knee injury with kind of massive bursitis in my right knee and tendonitis in my patellar tendon. I got injections in my knee and went through all kinds of therapy. And so a quick shout out, of course, to not only my family, Aiden, but the rest of my family for cheering me on and being so supportive, but very, very specifically to Dr. Michael Turner, who I've had on this podcast before, and Dr. Aaron Knighton. Both of them were absolutely instrumental in expert advice about how to get from point A to point B. Some of which include some fueling advice for the race itself, and some therapy treatment for my knee, et cetera, et cetera. So, incredible debt of gratitude to those two studly, wonderful men. But you say, okay, well, here's this race. You're running a race to win it, right? Isn't that the whole point? No, it wasn't. The point was to complete it. The point was to try to do something that was incredibly difficult, but doable. And the reason to do it is because if we don't do hard things on purpose, then we'll do hard things we don't choose. And I think if you could take anything from the podcast episode today, I hope it would be that. You get to choose your hard. But if you stop choosing your hard, it'll get chosen for you. Now, it wasn't too long ago in 2016, 2017 that I weighed over 250 pounds. I had incredible back problems, sciatica, just the whole list of things. Blood pressure going up, heading towards prediabetes, the whole list, and probably other things I didn't even know, right? It was a real wake-up call for me because I was treating that Ferrari like a dump truck. And I am not in any way in David Sinclair's category. Not at all. Not even close. Not even close. I will never, ever, ever medal or place on a podium in any of the races that I have done or will do. I won't. So don't hear this as like, oh, wow, well, you're some great athlete or you're some... No, not at all. I didn't have an athletic background. I didn't grow up with a dad. Some of you guys know that story. So I didn't really get that involved in athletics. I played some tennis and I enjoyed it, but not like serious with a coach, working on it, your fitness, your nutrition, mobility, none of that. Just recreational, just fun. So I don't have that background. And the reason that I'm doing a podcast on this is because I feel like all of us have the opportunity to change our thinking about what is and isn't possible. Okay. I'm like, I'm going to try to do this thing that's hard. Why are you going to do this thing that's hard? Why? Don't do that. One of my sons was telling my son who ran it with me, you better put him in bubble wrap. You better be sure nothing happens to him. Right? Tongue in cheek, of course. But why do we do things that are hard? Well, you could say it's ego. If you guys have seen the documentary Free Solo, that'll make your blood pressure go up. I highly recommend it. I love it. I've seen it probably 10 times. And I think Alex Honnold's a total stud, super cool guy. But he basically climbs the face of El Capitan with no ropes at all. It's like, I don't know, 2,000 feet, some ridiculous amount. It's just a rock face that goes straight up, sometimes past vertical. It's super risky. Why in the world would you do this? And I think from the outside, it just looks like the dumbest possible thing. If you just slip, you're going to die. I didn't really face any true risk. I mean, I guess I could have had a heart attack. I guess I could have slipped and fell and hit my head. I guess I could have passed out from running so long and fallen in front of a truck. There's part of the race that's, you've got traffic on one side. I guess all that stuff could happen. I don't think what I did was very risky. I do think it was hard, and so I certainly, again, I'm not comparing myself to David Sinclair or to Alex Honnold or any great pro athlete. But as a category, though, why do we need to do hard things? First of all is agency. If you do not choose your life, you're a slave. That is a fact. If you choose not to choose, You're giving away your agency and you're acting like a slave. The world is not better when more of us are just sheeple that follow along and take everything at face value and just do what we're told. Our country and our world are better when everyone's making an informed, wise choice. Because choice is what produces maturity. And maturity produces wisdom, and wisdom is the pathway to freedom. Now, freedom as in just the ability to do anything at any time, in any way, at any amount. No, I don't mean that. Obviously, there's healthy constraints, so I don't mean freedom in an overly, purist sort of definition. I mean freedom as in the liberty to pursue happiness, to pursue our calling, to pursue our destiny, to pursue improvement. That's what I mean. Okay. Now, if you do not choose hard things, like I want to watch football and sit on my keister, and it would be hard to walk around the block because it's cold and I don't want to and I don't feel good. I want to see who wins the game. And you start to reclaim some of your sense of agency and say, you know what? I'm going to do something other people would be proud of. I'm not going to just sit here and watch people do great things. I'm going to do a great thing. I don't care if it's not as great as some football star. I don't care if it's as awesome as Aaron Rodgers or whoever, right? I don't care. It's awesome to me. That is agency. So you get up off your butt, you put on your tennis shoes, you throw on your coat, you get your beanie, and out you go. Out you go. And I'm going to tell you what, 100% of the time, 15 minutes later, you feel better. And now you can sit down and watch that game. Okay? Start making agency a habit for you. It's not about vanity. I don't care if you have a six-pack. I don't care if you can do 50 pull-ups. Okay, it's not about breaking other people's records or some kind of ego trip or toxic masculinity or, I don't know, toxic femininity for that matter. It's not about all that nonsense. It's about how you feel about yourself, how you feel in your body, and your sense of agency. I can make a difference. I can make a change. I am not trapped. I am not stuck. I will not be stuck. I will not be trapped, and I will not think that way. That's why we have to choose hard things. Because if you choose to do it, instead of it being forced upon you, you guys all remember the Dietrich Bonhoeffer quote, right? It was for a couple of podcasts ago, but the strong man is the one who brings momentous issues to the fore and makes a decision. Takes decisive action, murders the alternatives. That's what decide means, like homicide, suicide, pesticide, right? Something's dying. The alternatives are getting crushed out of existence. I am acting decisively. But the weak are forced to choose from options they themselves did not choose. This is the whole key, guys. The whole key right here. Ask yourself the question, how many things that are hard are you choosing to do versus how many things that are hard are being, quote, forced on you? Tip the scales in the other direction. That's why I did it. That's why I've done about 30 Spartan races, a couple of Tough Mudders. Why? Part of it's fun. It is fun. And most of those races I do with my family. So that's just incredible bonding. I love doing it with them. And whenever I do a race and it doesn't work out to do it with the crew, it always feels like, so I love doing it with them. But I'm choosing my hard. I am choosing my pain. Now, do I get to choose all my pain in my life? No, I don't. But I'll tell you what, choosing to get up off the sofa and take a 15-minute walk when I wanted to sit there is choosing not to have back pain a year from now. Oh, is that a scientific fact, Eric? Probably not. But is it a causal link in the chain? In my experience, it is. It is. Lower blood pressure, lower body fat, lower weight, better attitude, more of those good hormones that get produced when you go for a walk or you work out. Yeah, that is my experience of it. So I want to just key in on an idea then as we transition here and kind of land the plane towards this idea of being last. I came in dead last and I was so happy. I can't tell you how happy I was to cross that finish line. I also want to give a shout out to the assistant race director who actually got out there on the last maybe 4 or 5 miles on the course with us. There was about 3 or 4 of us stragglers that were just right at the margin. Like, you possibly can still finish, but holy moly, we got to get focused. He was so motivational and such a superstar. And I gave him the biggest hug after the race was over, just looked him in the eyes, told him what a difference he made. He didn't have to do that. He'd been out there all day long and more than that because they had to set up the course. And it's just a huge undertaking. And I'm going to tell you what, this guy went way above and beyond to encourage us, to tell us we could do it. We had to get to a certain cutoff at mile 46. I said I'd come back to that one, so I might as well do it now. At mile 46, there's a cutoff, and if you don't make it, just like all the other ones, you're done. You can't finish, and so you gotta leave the course. My son says to me, "Dad, we have a very, very short amount of time to get to that cutoff. We have, at that point, 3 minutes. We have 3 minutes to get there." Prior to that, he was saying the same thing. So we actually ran an 11-minute mile, which, again, by David Sinclair standards is terrible. But by Eric Beck standards, who was hoping to average somewhere in the low 15s, was fabulous. We ran an 11-minute mile after having run 45 miles. That was awesome. And that does not happen without people speaking into your ear and saying, choose your hard, keep freaking going. And we crossed the mile 46 marker with 45 seconds remaining. My son was saying, "Dad, if we can get to this aid station, we will buy an hour. We will then have 4 hours. We'll have 1 hour to go 4 miles, 4 15-minute miles." And you might think, I could walk a 15-minute mile. You probably can. You probably can. But after 46 of them, it's harder. I'm going to tell you, it's harder. So we did make that cutoff with 45 seconds to spare. And again, this guy was the race director, and I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. Assistant race director. Oh my gosh, what a superstar. What an absolute superstar. So here I am coming in dead last, and I'm doing a podcast to tell you guys about the value of being dead last. The value in it is choosing your hard. Now, there's a practice that I learned. I don't know if this gentleman came up with it. His name is Sam Harris. I heard this in a podcast of his, or it could have been on his app, Waking Up. But I think he called it the last time practice or something to that effect. And he said, life is interesting. It's full of paradoxes and contradictions. One of which is you never know when something's the last time. So you could think of someone who maybe passed away that you love, and you didn't probably know the last time you would laugh with them, or the last meal. You probably didn't know it was the last meal, or even things that are less emotional, like the last time you played tennis, or the last time you played ping pong, or the last time you had a conversation with, a college professor. If you just think about that, you're just going through, it's your senior year, and you don't realize, hey, that's the last time I'll ever see that person or talk to that person. The last time I ate peanut butter, the last time I had a waffle. When was the last time right? Our life is crossing a lot of finish lines that are likely quite unconscious. And if you want to choose your hard, do this exercise, do this practice. Pick a few things in your life and really ask yourself the following question. If I knew for a fact that the next time I get to do fill in the blank would be the last time, what does that do? How do I hold that? I'm not going to say what would you do differently, because I think that's impractical. If you think about that, that's not really practical. The value in the exercise is not a change in behavior. It's a change in perspective. Okay. I'm really impatient with this person at the grocery store. Okay. What if it were the case that that's the last time you'll be standing in a grocery store because there's a car wreck that's going to happen and you're going to be paralyzed or something or whatever. Okay. It's not about focusing on the morbid side. It is about focusing on the preciousness side. I mean, there was some time, that was the last time I picked up one of my kids and held them like a toddler, like in your arms, right? There was the last time. I have no idea when it was. All of my kids now are way too big for that, right? I don't know the last time, but there was a last time. There was a last time my son Sam mispronounced the color yellow by saying lello. He used to say that, and I treasured it. I told his older brothers, don't correct him. Sam is now a monster behemoth young man and awesome, and in many ways far away from that little boy. But we do bring that child along with us, right? That's still on the inside. And so that there was a last time that came and went. The point of the exercise is to see each next situation as a possible last time, not in the depressive, sorrowful, oh no way, but on the side of, could be though. Maybe I could drink in this moment a little more deeply. Maybe I could just appreciate it. I might not do anything different, but I could just appreciate that at some point in the future, I'm going to cross the finish line, and this will be the last time. I love this exercise, and I'm so grateful that he shared it again. I don't know if he created it or it came from someone who taught him at some point, but ultimately for me, it is about alchemy. You see, the unconscious, unexamined life is a slave life. It is. And again, I don't want to take the analogy too far. I don't mean literally you are chained and you're getting whipped and you're being abused on a daily basis. I know there's still physical, actual slavery that happens in the world. And I never want to compare oranges to apples in a way that's just ridiculous. I'm not saying that it's the same. It's a type of it, though. It is a shadow of it. And in the long run, in certain ways, from our soul's point of view, it might be truly destructive somewhere in that same zip code. An unexamined, unconscious, unchosen, lack of agency life where you just followed the next thing. You just took the path of least resistance and you got used by everything and everyone. Yeah, I do think it's a kind of slavery. And I think most of us are asleep. And most of us are slaves in that way. And when we exert agency, we take that deep breath in and we wake up a little bit and we start to pursue something, maybe with a little bit of a different tact. Alchemy is one of those tacts, and it really, to me, solves the problem of evil. There are many philosophers, Sam Harris among them, and many others for centuries that have asked this question of why is there evil? Why do bad things happen? And if you want to get a little more thorny, why do bad things happen to good people? If you want to get a little bit more thorny than that, if there's a God and he's all powerful and he's omniscient, he knows everything and he's omnibenevolent, this tri-omni God. Okay, he's powerful, he's loving, and he knows everything. Why in the world would there ever be the kind of ridiculously awful horrors that happen in the human experience? So that's a very important question. I'm going to, for today's podcast, take one step past that question, which is not why is there evil, but what do we do with it? And I would like to submit for your guys' consideration and hopefully immediate usage, alchemy. That you can have those conversations about why is it there in the first place. I think it's very valuable to do that. But I also think that the quality of your life depends on what you do because it's there. Because nobody would deny it. I guess there's some people would say it's all an illusion. But I think most of us realize that, no, it's not an illusion. It's real. And I would say it this way. Yeah, it's bad, but I'll put it to use so my loss is still a win. It is bad. I'm not going to say that it's good. It is bad. However, I'm going to use agency. I'm going to use my freedom. I'm going to see that I do have a Ferrari, and not necessarily compared to everybody else, but compared to nothing. I have an incredible opportunity, and I'm going to choose my hard, because the more hards I choose, the more use I can get out of them easier. There's going to be some hards that happen that you did not choose. If you are in the practice, in the habit of choosing your hard, then you will be in a way better position to deal with a few that sneak in that you didn't choose. And some of us get more and some of us get less. And I don't know what to say about that. But I do know what to say. That's not what matters. What matters is not, is it fair? What matters is, what do I do with it? The alchemy is to say, it is bad, but I'm going to put it to use so that my loss is still a win. It's not my fault, but it is my responsibility. We talked about this in social media a few weeks ago. Actually, today is 8 days from the race. We just did the race a week ago yesterday, so I'm still a bit sore. My toenails look ridiculous and my feet are a wreck. Well, not as much of a wreck, but oh my gosh. That was kind of like, on the one hand, kind of awesome, on the other hand, kind of gory, but also awesome to see what happens to your feet after 50 miles. 51.2, by the way, because, I was going to come back to that. It's not a controversy, but I did not know that a long part of the race is by the Potomac River, this canal. And so it's snaking back and forth. And if you run in the center of, or the right side, I forget this wrong. Ultimately, if you don't take the shorter curve every time, like race car drivers would cut in on the curve, right? If you don't do that, after 30 miles of running, it's about an extra 0.9 miles. Dang it! I wish I had known that. I tell you what, David Sinclair knew that. The pros all knew that. I did not know that. But my watch was showing 51.28 miles when we were done. And I was like, what the heck? It was hard enough to do 50. Was my watch wrong? And then one of the race officials said, well, if you don't mind those curves, it adds up. Okay, it's not my fault, but it is my responsibility. So I went 51.28 miles in 12 hours and 57 minutes and 18.2 seconds. Yes! Okay, there you go. Why does all that matter? Well, if you're David and you're trying to win this thing, aim small, miss small, heck yeah, he's trying to hit every line he perfectly can. He wants the shortest race. He doesn't want it to be anything over 50 miles because he's trying to win. He's choosing his hard. I didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that. But I'll tell you what I was aiming for. I was aiming for every next aid station. And in those last 4 miles, I was aiming for 2 parking cones, 2 caution cones ahead. That's what I'm aiming for. Get me there. And then let's do that again. And let's do that one more time. And let's keep doing that until I see those flashing lights. The cops were out to help with traffic, which was awesome. And then I finally could see that big inflated, finish line arch and finally get across that finish line. Guys, I just want to leave you with this. It's your job to choose your hard. It is. And you're going to get some you didn't choose. But I'm going to tell you what, don't be a victim. Don't be a victim. If you set your mind in the way that we teach at Founders Fire, you're going to see something amazing happen. Love for you to visit the website if you've never been over to say hi to us, foundersfire.com. We do have a retreat coming up in Florida and Destin at the end of January, where we're going to help you put a lot of these things into practice for you as an entrepreneur, but also for your business and for your team. Love to have you join us. Not a lot of spots available there. That's not a gimmick. It's true. But I hope that you guys take what we're saying today really to heart. And that is choosing your hard. Alchemy. I'm going to choose the hard. I'm going to do the thing I admire. I'm not going to sit on my butt watching other people do things that are admirable. They say that self-esteem comes from doing esteemable acts. Esteemable in whose opinion? First of all, yours. But pretty soon, that walk for 15 minutes might be a run for 15 minutes, might be some push-ups, might be some bring Sally up, bring Sally down. If you don't know what that is, you can find that on YouTube. Oh my gosh. Talk about choosing something hard. But start somewhere. It might be having that hard conversation you don't want to have. It might be in creating more clarity in your business instead of being stuck in the business, getting your way to working on the business, being back in that captain's chair. Maybe that's even leading you to consider, hey, could I sell this business one day? Could I expand it? Could it really run without me? All those things are exactly the same as this idea of being dead last. I chose to enter the race. I started it. And Michael Turner said to me, he said, it's a victory to even take the first step. And it was. And I heard that ringing in my ears as I did it. And it was a victory to take the very last step and to be dead last. Choose your hard. Choose your hard. Start small and keep going. You're going to reap a huge reward. And I can't wait to hear about it, guys. We'll end with this Winston Churchill quote because, hey, why not? It's Winston Churchill. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.